Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into the weeds of the global cyber threat landscape.
Yeah, we're using the FortiGuard Labs 2025 report as our guide.
Exactly. And this isn't just, another report. It's giving us a real look at how adversaries are thinking, how they're operating.
And crucially, what that means for staying secure, what shifts we need to make.
Right. And the data behind it. It's impressive.
Oh, absolutely. FortiGuard Labs pulls from, everywhere. Their own sensors, obviously, but also darknet intelligence, even cloud data via Lacework, Fortisea, and ABPP.
So it's a really comprehensive picture. You get the sense they're seeing a lot.
Definitely a 360-degree view.
Okay, so our mission today, for you listening, is to boil this down. We want to pull out the key trends, the big shifts, without overwhelming you.
Aiming for those aha moments, right? The actionable stuff.
Precisely. And before we jump in, we really want to thank our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.services. Okay, let's get started. The report kicks off with this idea, the acceleration of the adversary advantage. What does that actually mean day to day?
Well, it's not just that attacks happen faster, though they do. It's more fundamental.
Yeah.
They're automating, scaling up operations, attacking more targets simultaneously.
So it erodes that traditional defender's edge, where we could maybe react in time.
Exactly. They're becoming more efficient. It means we can't just sit back and react anymore. The report really pushes this idea of proactive exposure management. You have to get ahead of it.
That makes sense. It's like moving from, reacting to individual fires to managing the whole forest's risk.
That's a good way to put it.
And tied into that, the report mentions this huge surge in reconnaissance, like massive amounts of scanning.
Oh, the numbers are pretty stark. A 16.7% increase worldwide in automated scanning just in 2024.
Wow, 16.7%. What does that translate to?
Billions. Billions of scan attempts every month. If you break it down, it's something like 36,000 attempts every single second.
36,000 a second? That's mind-boggling.
It is. And it's not just noise. It's targeted. They're mapping everything out, looking for those soft spots, specific vulnerabilities, very efficient.
So what are they actually looking for with all that scanning? What are the prime targets?
Mostly exposed services, things that shouldn't be facing the internet. SIP, for voice systems, RDP for remote access, basically open doors.
Digital open doors.
Right. And also OT/IoT protocols, things like Modbus, TCP, and industrial systems. They know those are often less protected.
And the report names tool-wise. SIP Vicious seems like a big one.
Huge. Responsible for almost nearly 50% of the scanning they detected. It's meant to be a security audit tool, but
attackers are using it offensively.
Exactly. And it's not just that. They're using legitimate commercial tools, too. Qualys, Nmap, Nessus, OpenVAS. Stuff we use for defense, they're using for reconnaissance.
Turning our own tools against us. Okay, and the report talks about a left-of-boom shift. Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, that ties back to the acceleration. Left of boom means they're doing the work before the attack, before the boom. They identify vulnerable targets way in advance.
So before patches are even out sometimes?
Or before they're applied, yeah. They map out the weaknesses, find the exposed services, and then they're ready to pounce the second a vulnerability is known or something isn't patched quickly.
So that window defenders have, it's shrinking.
Dramatically. You can't rely on having weeks or even days anymore.
That's sobering. Okay, another major point. AI. Artificial intelligence supercharging cybercrime. This sounds like a serious escalation.
It really is. It's a game changer. AI is being woven into pretty much every stage of an attack now.
How so? Like what parts?
Crafting way more convincing phishing emails, for starters. Better impersonation attacks.
Wow.
Generating extortion demands that seem more real. Even creating malware that's better at hiding, evading detection.
Can you give some specific examples? Are there actual AI tools for criminals out there?
Oh, yeah. That's the worrying part. Tools built for this. Fraud GPT, Blackmailer V3.
Yeah.
These are like criminal AI assistants. And then you've got AI generating deep fakes for scams. Super realistic fake websites for phishing things, using platforms like Evil Proxy or Robin Banks. Even voice cloning. Tools like 11 Labs being used for phishing calls that sound incredibly real.
So AI makes it easier, faster, and just. More believable for the criminals. Harder for us to spot.
Precisely. And the report links this directly to the whole cybercrime as a service or call-less model growing.
Right. Call-less. How does AI fit in there?
Well, just like legit businesses use AI to specialize, call-less groups are doing the same. One group focuses on phishing using AI, another on AI-driven malware. This specialization, powered by AI, It's industrializing cybercrime. More attacks, more effective attacks.
It's becoming a whole underground industry, basically, highly organized.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which brings us to how CALS is fueling initial access, that first break-in. The report talks about an exploding market for stolen credentials and access.
Exploding is the right word. The darknet markets for stolen logins, direct ways into corporate networks, they're booming. FortiGuard Labs saw a 42% jump in compromised credentials for sale.
42% increase. That's huge.
And way more activity from initial access brokers, IABs. These are the guys who specialize in finding that first foothold and then selling it off.
Like specialized burglars selling keys? What kind of access are they typically selling?
All sorts. Corporate VPN logins are big, about 20% of listings. RDP access is right there too, around 19%. Then you see admin panel access, web shells, those hidden backdoors on servers.
And they even name some IAB groups.
Yeah, names like Sandokan, F13, Jefferg pop up. It shows how structured this market actually is.
And info stealers play a big role in gathering those credentials in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Redline, Vidar, Raccoon get mentioned.
Absolutely key. These malware types are grabbing the data that fuels that market.
Right.
Redline especially. A 500% increase in its credential logs found on darknet forums.
500%. Why so popular?
It's cheap, relatively easy to use, and steals everything: browser data, email logins, crypto wallets, messaging apps. Vidar is more advanced, can even bypass MFA sometimes, targets VPNs, cloud tokens. Raccoon is stealthier, good at grabbing lots of data quietly.
So these tools make harvesting our digital keys frighteningly simple for attackers.
Frighteningly, yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Ransomware. The report describes this interesting situation. Fragmentation in form, unity in function. Sounds like a paradox.
It does, doesn't it? But it makes sense when you dig in. On one hand, lots of new ransomware groups popping up, 13 new ones identified. So, more players.
Diversification.
Right. But on the other hand, the big players still dominate. The top four: Ransom Hub, Lockbit 3.0, Play, and Medusa, they're still responsible for like 37% of all the attacks seen.
So, new faces, but the established gangs still run a big part of the show.
Exactly. Like, lots of craft breweries opening, but Budweiser and Miller still sell most of the beer.
Got it. And there's a troubling trend mentioned: hacktivists using ransomware now.
Yes, that's a worrying development. Groups driven by ideology are now using ransomware, blurring the lines with financially motivated crime, makes attacks less predictable, potentially more damaging.
And nation-states are still active too, of course.
Oh yeah, still hitting critical sectors: manufacturing, government, education, tech. And interesting side note, Telegram is like the central meeting place, the coordination hub for all these different actors.
A real mix of motives and methods, all converging. Okay, what about exploitation volume? The report says it's soaring.
It is. While the time it takes them to exploit a new vulnerability hasn't changed much, the number of attempts, the sheer scale has just exploded. Over 97 billion exploitation attempts recorded by FortiGuard Labs.
97 billion, that's... Yeah. Where does that come from? Just the automation we talked about.
That's likely a huge driver, yeah. The automation lets them cast a much, much wider net than before.
And what are they hitting with all those attempts? What's being targeted?
High on the list are exposed IoT devices, routers, firewalls, cameras, things that often have, let's say, weaker security.
Easy targets.
Easy targets, and useful. They can be used for botnets, for moving laterally inside a network, for persistent access. The report gives the Avanti vulnerability, CVE 2024-2187 as an example, exploited just 6 days after disclosure. Shows how fast they move on high-impact stuff.
6 days? Wow! Really underscores the need for rapid patching, doesn't it? And securing all those connected things.
Absolutely critical.
So once they're in, after that initial exploit, the report says their tactics are getting stealthier, living off the land. What does that look like?
It means they're trying to blend in. Instead of bringing noisy custom malware, they use tools and processes that are already on the system, legitimate tools.
Like using the system's own tools against it.
Exactly. Think of a burglar using the homeowner's own crowbar. They use built-in things to escalate privileges, move around the network, stay hidden. It bypasses a lot of traditional security that looks for known bad files.
Any specific techniques mentioned?
Yeah, things like manipulating Active Directory, using DC Shadow or DC Think, very subtle ways to gain control, using standard RDP for moving between machines, encrypting their command and control traffic, using normal-looking DNS or SSL traffic. Masters of disguise, really.
Hiding in plain sight within our own networks. Okay, let's talk cloud. Still a major target, the report says. Attacks evolving, but misconfigurations are still a huge problem.
That's a key point. The cloud offers amazing benefits, but security is complex. And yes, basic mistakes, open storage buckets, giving accounts way too many permissions. These are still causing major breaches. The Lacework Fortisee NAPP data shows cloud compromises rising, often due to these fundamentals.
What are the common ways they're getting into cloud environments?
It's often a mix. Abusing identities, stealing user credentials or service accounts is big. Exploiting insecure APIs, using privilege escalation techniques once they're in. Often it's a multi-stage attack designed to be quiet.
And reconnaissance is important here too.
Very. It's often the first step in cloud attacks. Probing APIs, checking permissions, looking for those weak spots before making a move.
There's a striking stat in there about logins from weird locations.
Yeah, that one jumps out. In 70% of the cloud incidents they analyzed, the initial access came from logins from geographically unfamiliar places.
70%.
It screams compromise. It really highlights how crucial identity monitoring and strong access controls are in the cloud. It's not just about the tech. It's about who's accessing what, from where.
Knowing your users, knowing your access patterns. Makes sense. Okay, the report also looks at the broader adversary landscape, key trends.
It's just fast evolution, constant change, established groups refining tactics, new ransomware players popping up all the time, hacktivism getting more sophisticated and disruptive, and state-sponsored actors doing their persistent espionage thing.
Any specifics on the most active groups or targets?
Yeah, it details the top ransomware groups, which sectors and countries they hit most. And it notes the rise of new ransomware as a service platforms on the darknet, making it easier for less skilled people to launch attacks, lowers the barrier to entry.
And the trends in hacktivism and state actors.
Hacktivism, as we mentioned, is leaning into ransomware, often tied to geopolitical issues. Telegram is their HQ, basically. State actors groups like Lazarus, Kimsuky, APT-28, Volt Typhoon, APT-29 still very active, mainly targeting government, tech, education for spying.
It's a complex, shifting ecosystem of threats. So bringing it all home, the report offers a CISO playbook. What are the core recommendations for you listening?
The big strategic push is towards continuous threat exposure management CTEM. It's about constantly finding, assessing, and fixing risks, not a one-off thing.
A continuous cycle.
Exactly. Specific recommendations include simulating attacks, red teaming, purple teaming, using frameworks like MITRE, ATT, and CK to really understand how attackers operate.
Get inside their heads.
Right. Also, aggressively shrink your attack surface. Use ASM tools, monitor the darknet for mentions of your company, prioritize vulnerabilities using things like exploit prediction scoring, fix the riskiest stuff first.
Makes sense.
Automate security testing with breach and attack simulation, BSS, tools, and leverage threat intelligence, dark web intel, threat attribution, to know who might be coming after you and how.
So the overarching message is, be proactive, not reactive. Think like an attacker, harden your defenses before they strike.
That's the core of it.
Okay. And just before we wrap up, a final thank you to our sponsor, www.cisomarketplace.services, for supporting this deep dive. So to recap for everyone listening, this landscape is changing fast. You need a security approach that's just as agile, just as proactive.
Understanding how these adversaries work, their tactics, their motives, that's absolutely fundamental now for building defenses that actually work.
Definitely encourage you to think about how these trends map onto your own situation. Maybe even check out the full FortiGuard Labs report if you want more detail.
Staying informed, adapting. It's not optional anymore. It's just necessary to navigate this.
Absolutely. And maybe one final thought to leave you with. Attackers are using AI and automation like crazy. So the big question for us on the defense side is, how can we leverage those same technologies, AI and automation, not just to keep up, but to actually get ahead, to turn the tables in this digital fight? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.